I suggest that you make sure that the cat's nowhere near you in case you kick it. Maybe have a cup of tea on standby, all right, but just be in a safe space. Somewhere if you fainted in surprise, you'd be okay. All right, have a soft landing ground somewhere, because the next half hour, I'm going to tell you some stories, you wouldn't believe it stories. It's like Ripley's Believe It or Not this morning. And they are stories that show us why we need to push for change in our society and community, and how out of whack and crazy things have got. I've got three things I want to talk about. Look, we'll start in Wellington. In Wellington, a city that is it would seem, terminal decline. A city that's infrastructure is straining and breaking, where property prices are falling, though I read this morning somewhat more slowly than they were before. And a city that has had problems with homeless people on the streets and beggars on the streets, and has got stacks of empty shops. But, and a council that has now got an observer in there from the government because it's so dysfunctional. And a dipsomaniac, possibly autistic mayor, who doesn't talk to the platform, which doesn't matter. And all that happens in the context of a country that supposedly is more divisive than ever before and is having a debate about the Treaty of Waitangi. God, and has the Maori Party in some political polls rating it 9%, which is what you get, really, when you manage to take money from the taxpayer, wash it through a trust, a charitable trust, and then use it for political campaigning. And when you've got the mainstream wokies and the mainstream media supporting your cause, you can, as the Maori Party, get up to 9% in the polls. That's what good publicity and having a compliant, politically biased news media does for you. But let's get back to Wellington. No matter what Wellington's problems is, one of the things you've got to do in a city is keep it clean, right, Ben? Literally just clean the streets, right?
Yeah, just not have, rubbish lying around.
And to do that, you have to hire companies to clean the streets, right? Right, Ben? Would that be...
That's a fair assessment.
That would be if you want the streets clean...
I'd agree with that. That'll be the first
thing
I'd
go and get a company to do that. And you'd want that to be their primary jolly area of expertise, wouldn't you?
I would prefer, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I wouldn't want them doing other stuff like that.
How important do you think the Treaty of Waitangi, though, is to cleaning streets?
Completely irrelevant. Wouldn't factor into
Well, I'm going to share with you the kind of request for proposals for street cleaning in Wellington. Wellington City Council is dedicated to the obligations of the 2020 Te Ipoko o Te Ika a Maui commitment. The guiding principles of this commitment, this is being written to people who run street cleaning companies, Ben, right? That you must remove barriers that hinder local Maori, Pacifical and social enterprise from accessing and winning council contracts. Local supply chain resilience and long-term economic prosperity. Advocating for supplier diversity and the benefits it creates in communities. How does your organisation define supplier diversity? And what strategies do you have in place to promote diversity within your supply chain? Please share a specific example of an initiative aimed at increasing the inclusion of diverse suppliers in your work programs, along with the subcontractor's trading name and contact details for reference checking. So this is saying if we're going to hire you, you have to show that you've got a diversity supply chain within your business. You have to be woke, is what it's saying. Can you describe any training or education programs implemented to support the development and growth of diverse suppliers that you work with? What steps does your organisation take to identify and assess potential diverse suppliers? These are all questions that I'm now asking myself about the platform quite seriously, Ben. How do you collaborate with diverse suppliers to build long-term relationships and promote their sustainability within your supply chain? In the event of challenges faced by diverse suppliers, can I just be honest at this stage? I'm still not quite sure what a diverse supplier is. Is that like a Maori person or a Pacific Island?
Is this all about people who pick up rubbish from the street?
Yes, Ben.
Okay.
Just listen. This has been written by very expensive bureaucrats. In the event earlier, can you provide details about any partnerships or collaborations your organisation has with diverse business associations or advocacy groups? That's kind of like saying, are you a member of Rainbow Tick? To enhance supplier diversity, how do you communicate your commitment to supplier diversity to stakeholders, and what steps are taken to integrate diversity consideration into your overall corporate strategy? So that is a questionnaire for people who would bid for the contract to clean the streets in Wellington. Okay? Do you think that's reasonable, Ben?
No, I don't. And I think this exemplifies what happens with Rainbow Tick and stuff, right? Because they go to the councils and say, oh, you should really have a criteria for this. And then they go to the businesses and say, get our tick, and then you'll get jobs like this.
Yeah, well, no, this is about the obligations of Te Upoko o Te Ika a Maui commitment.
Well, then the advisory companies that do stuff like that, then, the certifications, it's all connected.
You know what? They could have saved a lot of time. Said, are you any good at cleaning streets? And how much do you cost? I just think that would have been a more easier way to procure the best service for the money. How often have you looked at someone cleaning the street and said, oh, that doesn't look, that street cleaning machine doesn't look very diverse to me. I don't like that.
No.
I don't like the white colonialism on that street sweeper.
Well, I don't see them because they haven't done much of a job.
No. But there we have it. That is just one particularly crazy example of things that are going on. I mean, that is Jaguar. Right there. That's the Jaguar rebrand right there. And people inside organisations, you've just got to say, as individuals, if you want to maintain your sanity and not live in a lunatic asylum, you should laugh at this. And you go to your boss, you rip it up. There's got to be a revolution against. Look, that's left me speechless. Okay, we're going to have a break, and then I'm going to show you another example of woke gone mad. The text machine is exploding. But I feel better walking down clean streets that are being diversely cleaned. It's so important to me, as I'm sure it's so important to all of you. Okay, example 2. Television New Zealand, which announced yesterday that actually Anna Burns-Francis, who's actually got some chops as a journalist, and Hayley Holt, who I know rates well, they says they're leaving TVNZ. That means they took the money. They offered them the money to get out rather than be made redundant, and they took the deal. Both white women, I note white blonde women, who are feeling the cold winds of diversity as well. But TVNZ, of course, we know TVNZ News pretty well as woke as you can get these days. But a story they published yesterday, I saw it on Twitter, and of course they turned off the comments. But remember when we did the last census and people wondered why they wanted to know everything about how you identified and your gender and gayness and stuff? Well, that's so they could come up. I think they did that so that TVNZ could write rubbish stories like this. I'll read the headline. World first census data highlights housing deprivation in LGBTQI plus community. LGBTQI plus New Zealanders have been experiencing severe housing deprivation at a higher rate than non-LGBTQI plus, according to world first census data out today. That's yesterday. The numbers collected in the 2023 census show at the time 261 per 10,000 LGBTQI plus people, that's like, 2.6%, aged 15 and over. A total of 4,413 people were estimated, just estimated, not actually estimated to be living in severe housing deprivation. The rate was 212 per 10,000 who are not LGBTQI. So people in severe housing deprivation as a general thing of the population, 212 per 10,000 and 261 per 10,000 estimated for the LGBTQI plus community. Bugger all difference, actually, and the numbers minuscule. According to the story, the LGBTQI plus population had higher proportions of people affected across all categories of homelessness, those who without shelter in temporary accommodation, sharing someone else's private dwelling, and those in uninhabitable housing. You cannot live in an uninhabitable house, by the way, because if you're in it, it's habitable. But here we go, and they finally write the story they should have written, about 5 sentences, 6 sentences in. The highest deprivation rates were among Pacific peoples. But we're used to that, and Pacific peoples don't have a Pacific tick campaign, because TVNZ, I'm pretty sure, is rainbow ticked. So the fact that the most housing deprived people in New Zealand are Pacific Islanders is secondary to the fact that the LGBTQI community has found a statistic it can feel victimised by. And of course, if you see that story as the absolute woke madness that I do, run with a big picture of a rainbow flag, you can't tell TVNZ that because they turned the comments off, didn't they? They decided there wouldn't be any comments about their crappy journalism, advocacy, LGBTQI advocacy. The headline should have been Pacifica people, Pacific Islanders, most at risk of housing deprivation according to latest census statistics. But oh no, now this is the cricketer, and let's try and get a pen out, Ben, try and get hold of this. I'm not sure if it's a man or a woman. It's one of those LGBTQI names. University of Otago senior research fellow Brodie Fraser told One News it was a big deal for Aotearoa to be the first in the world to have all of population data on LGBTQI plus homelessness, showing how disproportionately affected the community is. No, we've already established the most disproportionately affected are Pacific Island people. You know how I said I wasn't sure if that was a man or a woman? One of those. Because the next sentence of the story says, they said it was commonplace for members of the rainbow community to take one another in to prevent people from living on the streets when they were not accepted anywhere else. Victim. It's commonplace for all sorts of people, whether they're LGBTQI or not. Oh, there's a picture of her. She's a Sheila. Brodie's a Sheila. Well, maybe. Not pink hair, I'm surprised. It can put a big strain on relationships. At this stage, of course, we're now just into Brodie's. We're just into Brodie's pure speculation because we're not talking about the statistics in the census anymore. We're just talking about Brodie's woke advocacy, aren't we? And her feelings. So there we go, TVNZ. You have outdone yourself in meaningless news advocacy news again. And thank you so much for turning off the highlights. Now, if you want to read the story and comment on it, go to @Sean on Twitter, because I haven't turned the comments off, and I've highlighted this story, and you can have your say. Unlike what TVNZ offers you. So there you go. Another great example. Just every day I read stuff like this. I wonder if LGBTQI people are discriminated against in getting street cleaning contracts in Wellington. What's the situation for diverse LGBTQI street cleaners in Wellington? That would be a question. But I'll tell you what, that's why we waged the war on woke. And I have to say, in some ways, I'm a bit angry at Judith Collins, what she did yesterday, because she has robbed me of an annual opportunity to laugh and laugh loudly. Judith Collins announced yesterday that the Marsden Fund, which is a multi-million-dollar government research fund that is administered by the absolutely aggressively woke people at the New Zealand Royal Society, the people who protected Kate Hanna and the Disinformation Project and practice some of the most exclusionary cancel culture in this country. Well, they every year hand out literally millions and millions of dollars to researchers. And look, I'll eke some of them out in the days ahead, but let's just say it's often to do with things like gay, lesbian whales in wheelchairs, or my grandmother's menstrual cycle in relation to, the Treaty of Waitangi. The research that is funded to eye-watering amounts of money for completely woke, diverse rubbish over the years has been amazing. And they come out with the Marsden Fund grants every year. And groups like the Taxpayers Union, for a laugh, just publish who they've given the money to and what the research is for. Well, I got to say, good on you, Judith Collins, for saying no more. They've taken arts and humanities research funding out of the Marsden Fund. And they said it's got to be practical research, scientific research that has an economic or national benefit. It cannot be the significance of my grandmother's menstrual cycle in relation to the settlement of the Treaty of Waitangi or the Maori calendar. Oh, no, so you know what I'm talking about. You know this kind of milieu we're in.
Yeah, they did the decolonising hospital waiting
rooms.
That's
right. So you know the rubbish. And good on Judith. Now, of course, academia is outraged, and the experts are saying this is terrible. And the Green Party says the decision to cut all humanities and social sciences research funding was a massive step backwards. Social sciences are critical in shining a light on some of the injustice and inequalities of society, things this government would prefer to keep in the dark, science and research spokesperson Scott Willis said. He said social science research was a critical part of the ongoing critique and improvement of society. Bullshit. It's a critical part of your ongoing Marxist political campaigning. And I think New Zealanders have had quite enough of paying for it. The New Zealand Association of Scientists said receiving the announcement was chilling. Co-president put his name down. We'll try and get hold of him. Troy Baisden said the cuts doubled down on the end of national science challenges where social science was one of the cost-effective bright spots that emerged. It appears that we're defunding our ability to understand and address some of our most important challenges. No, Troy Baisden, we're defunding your wokeness and your social and political advocacy. Collins has also announced an updated plan for what's called the Catalyst Fund. Previously, the International Relationships Fund invests in international collaboration opportunities across the science sector, and they've changed some of the criteria there. Now, let's get hold of the McDermott Institute for Advanced Materials and Nanotechnology, because their woke professor, Nicola Gaston, says she's horrified by today's announcements. Well, she clearly scares easily. I am absolutely disgusted by the way that the kind of science I and my colleagues do as physical science involved in researching it. Oh, God, look, I can't. It's gobbledygook. But good on you, Judith. But I am going to miss every year laughing at the crap that gets funded through the Marsden Fund. But it is at that level where we can turn back, where we can wage the war on woke. I don't know if we can do anything about the diversity hires in Wellington street cleaning. And Television New Zealand will just stop watching it, and I will read their silly stories for you and tell you how woke they are.